I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Encyclopedia from Holy Grail Games, a game coming to Kickstarter or GameFound. I'm 99% sure Kickstarter. Either way, link in the description down below. And I've given this video an obnoxious title for a reason. Encyclopedia, the game I wanted Wingspan to be. And the reason for that title is twofold. One is it's true. I'll get more into that later. But secondly, I want you to pay attention to this video. I want you to click on it. I want you to see this game because I'm going to jump straight to it. I'm really enjoying this game a lot. And I want you to pay attention to it because I want it to do well. And I want you to get your hands on it because I think you'll like it. I mean, it depends on what you like otherwise. So watch the rest of the review, see what I like, don't like, all that, to see if this is a game for you. But this one really surprised me. It went from a game that I had never heard of, and hey, I'm happy to look at it, I'm happy to cover it, to just consistently growing play after play. This is definitely one of my highlights for 2022, and, well, the year has barely started. I mean, literally, it's barely started. When I'm filming this, it's January 1st, so yeah, the year has barely started. But either way, let's go ahead and get on into this. Encyclopedia is a Euro game. It's a Euro game that's going to last 6 rounds as you go through it. I have it mostly set up at the end of the gameplay. I'm going to go through how the round structure, all of that works. But basically, it's a game that lasts 6 rounds, and the general idea of the game is you're trying to get as many points as possible, primarily through a whole bunch of interlinking things, but primarily through the main core concept, the main idea is researching these various species of animals and then logging your discoveries in journals and logging them for other people to know about. You want to look into what type of animals, what habitats, what do they eat, all those different things about them, all that abstracted through a few symbols, which we'll get into. But that's the core concept. Everything else you're doing is kind of enabling that general point structure. When you research animals, you'll get points. When you log your research, your discoveries, you'll get points too. Everything else you do in the game will get you points. You see, the general round is going to start with you flipping one of these icons. These all start flip down over here. You're going to go ahead and flip one of them, and everyone's going to get that bonus. That's a part of where the fun begins, because this is a game all about getting bonuses. From there, players are going to go ahead and roll their dice and assign them to their spots. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to not worry too much about this. But the general idea is each player has 4 spots where they can assign their dice. The other player is going to go ahead and roll theirs. And then you can put the dice down the board. And this is an important and huge part of one of the many reasons why I like this game. Because your dice aren't yours. Your dice are just in play. But any player can take your dice as long as they're willing to pay you the points. You've noticed that I've ordered these lowest to highest. You don't have to do that, and sometimes you won't if you want specific colors. But it's often going to be something like that. Higher dice in general are better, which you might think is unfair. What about if I roll well, if you don't, all those things? The game accounts for that. You see, this player over here who wants a 6 and sees this 6, well, fortunately, they're first player, so they're going to go ahead and go first. They're going to take that 6 so they can use it, which is great. But the nice part is because of the price set on these dice, this player over here is going to go ahead and gather 3 points. 1, 2, 3, because you stole my dice. You can order these dice for different bonuses, from money to stars, reputation, 2 points, and then your 1 die over here gets you nothing. So one of your dice will get you nothing. The other dice, if stolen, will get you something. Again, it's part of why the game both allows those dice to be present in the game. It allows everyone to have them. It allows your high rolls to be potentially good for you, but also not taking you that far ahead because other players can take those dice from you for cost. But the nice part is you'll then take their dice and they'll get other things. Inherently, if you don't have enough dice, you have to buy from other people, resulting in these little escalating bonuses that everyone is getting. I'm getting way ahead of myself though, because we're going to take this die and we're going to use it for one of several actions. And this is going to be one of the critiques of the game. We'll get into that later. But there's a bunch of worker placement spots in this game, and they're not always immediately clear where they are. But just going through the general spots you have on the board, you have over here where you can go on these voyages, and you can cash in a die to get any number of navigation tokens. 1, 2, or 3 navigation tokens, or exploration tokens, or whatever they're called, but these are used primarily to boost the value of your dice, doing exploration over here, or doing expedition, or alternatively, to change the color of your dice. So they have 2 different uses, either boosting the value of your dice or changing the color. This is a good time to note that at any point in the game, regardless of those tokens, you can always spend money at a 1-to-1 ratio to increase the value of a die. You really need a 6 and all the ones are taken? Great, go ahead and turn that 4 to a 6 for the cost of 2 money. You want to turn something into a 22, which is relevant, but you could do that. You could turn a die into a 22, which is going to be relevant for these expeditions, but we'll get back to that later. So that's action spot 1. Cash in a die, take a bunch of tokens, they'll help you. Great. Moving over here, you can go ahead and take 5 money, and if you're the first player to do so this round, you'll also get, well, first player. So you'll get first player for next round, which is very helpful because, I mean, this is ultimately dice placement. Having better access to spots is a good thing. From there, we have the expert row, where you can go ahead and given a die, if you match the color to the card you're taking, if I given a red die and take a red card, then I'll get one of those expedition tokens over there. But otherwise, regardless of whether you match or not, you can go ahead and take any card. This is one of those good spots. Along with money, this is one of those spots where the value of the die doesn't actually matter. The color might, but the value doesn't, which means even though higher is generally better, sometimes it doesn't really matter at all. you're going to go ahead and take one of those cards, and those cards come in a variety of different things. These are the expert cards that give you anything from endgame scoring, different ways to improve your endgame scoring, to one-time benefits such as money or reputation, or just ongoing facts, or ongoing aspects of the game. So for example, this card over here is going to give you an extra point for every expedition token left at the end of the game. If you don't use them, you get points, and this way you get even more points. Versus a card like this is going to mean that all your number 1 dice, all your purple dice are going to get 1 extra pip on them. So your 5s become 6s, your 1s becomes 2s, etc. And this one over here is that whenever you go down over there, whenever you go to that ship spot, the Voyager spot, to go ahead and get extra tokens, you'll also get 2 reputation. Those are nice little bonuses you're going to start chaining together. Now your player board only has room for 4 cards. You can have as many cards as you want, and you could benefit from them even once you cover them. We'll get to that during the scoring part. But yes, you can have as many bonuses as you want. So you can only have 4 active bonuses. You can have as many cards as you want. So you're going to have to start picking and choosing what you want. Those endgame bonuses are great for endgame. Early in, they might just clog up your board. But if you have one that leans into your strategy, decisions, decisions, decisions. From there we have over here, we're going to go ahead and give in a die. The die you give in here is to get the animal that you want, the animals you're going to start trying to research, and then the number of the die you give in is going to determine how much extra reputation you have. We talked briefly about reputation with that card, but now's a good time to dive into reputation, which is this little track over here that is delightfully fun because this reputation track, as you do other things in the game, you're going to find that your reputation is constantly increasing, whether it's from expert cards or just the generic actions themselves. And then when you move up your reputation, 1, 2, 3, you're going to cross different markers and get different bonuses. Look at that. I get another animal card. So I can go ahead and take this one. That was not meant to be thrown. I can go ahead and take this one as well as this one. So for one single die, if I place my 4 over here, I get those 2 stars because it's a 2. Maybe I give in 1 money, turn it into a 5, and then I go ahead and move 3 stars up the reputation track, and I cross that magnifying glass, which is that icon there, giving me a second card. You can get bonus such as additional experts, such as tokens, such as money, and then when you get to the end of the track, you get these seals, which are very, very useful. But again, just reputations constantly moving up from your other actions. It's not an action unto itself, it just benefits from other things. I have these cards, we'll come back to them shortly, because now we're going over here. This is the next action you can take, where you can assign a die. Let's go ahead and find another green die. We don't have a green die, so we're going to steal Blue's 5. Blue's going to go up 2 on the track, grab an expert card. We're going to steal that 5. We're going to use an expedition token to turn it into a green 5. And we're going to lock it down over there. That's going to do 2 things. First of all, we're going to get 3 stars. Again, everything's giving you stuff in this game. Lots of back and forth. We're going to go ahead and go 1, 2, and then reset the beginning of the track, grabbing a seal along the way. Those are going to be helpful, but you keep moving up this track. You don't get to the end. You keep moving around the track. But we place this down over here, and we start trying to discover different facets of these cards. You see, when you gather the cards, you're going to, well, get cards. That's inherent. But past that, you need to actually discover what's going on in these cards. You have different categories of what you want, and these 2 cards in particular are a good set of cards because of how much they line up on. I'll talk about that a little bit more shortly, but what you need to know right now is we can pay different costs in order to explore different aspects of who these cards are. So you can see over here the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th attributes on a card cost 2, 4, 7, or 10 value. What does that mean? Well, let's just focus on one thing at a time so you can get a picture for this. This over here is that 2nd attribute that costs 4. This over here is the 3rd attribute that costs 6. If we wanted to explore those 2 facets, not 6, that costs 10. If we wanted to explore those 2 facets, we would require a total value of 14. But we only have 5 on our die, which means we're 9 short. We have to close that gap. We can close that gap with money, we can close that gap with abilities, we can close that gap with expedition tokens, so you have all these different options to close that gap. It is not uncommon at all in Encyclopedia. It's not uncommon at all to have someone cash in like 25 value because they gave an extra money that they've been earning through other actions, they gave an extra tokens, they went over here on this 3rd spot where you get extra pips. You have a bunch of things that can make your dice higher in different ways, and cashing in a whole bunch of value to explore a bunch of facets of cards, it happens in the game. And the relevance of that is we're going to go ahead and we're going to take 2 of our own markers. Let's grab 2 markers. We're going to put them on these cards and get 1 and 6 points respectively if we explored those 2 facets. Now, maybe we want to do it on this card as well, which is going to add a lot more cost. Maybe we have enough, maybe we don't. Maybe we just focus on the first 2 facets instead, which is a whole lot cheaper. That's going to be 2 plus 6 times 2. So 2 plus 4, which is 6, times 2 because of both cards. We pay a total of 12. We bridge the gap from our 5 over there, and we put down these tokens. We also move up 2 points because you get a bonus as soon as you explore those cards. So we go ahead and we move up 2 points in this track, and now we have these cards in our collection. Well, we already had them, but we now have them discovered or whatever. We're ready to go for the next spot, because that next spot is logging your discoveries. This is the final spot of the game, and this is where you're going to be logging discoveries. It is also the only spot that's actually a little bit complicated to explain to people. But let's go ahead and see how well we do here. The general idea is when you log a discovery, you're going to choose one species of animals. And by the way, when you go here, you have to log on that color of animals. So this is going to be green animals. We have to log on those. But same idea over here. You can log your different discoveries. Now, you don't actually have to choose a color over here. It's a little different. Although if you choose different colors, you might find some benefits being lost. So we'll explain that as we go. But let's actually grab this card over here. And for the sake of this example, let's pretend that we have a cube over here on this card. And these are the 3 cards we have. When we go over here, we're effectively logging our discoveries. We're going to take these cubes from the cards and slot them onto spots in the board that match those spots. So for example, we can grab 1, 2, 3, putting them into here, scoring 2 points per cube, moving up 6 to 16, grab these from the second spots, putting them into here, scoring 3 points per cube, that's another 6, moving over there to 22, and then logging the cards themselves. The cards that match the primary color of the die we use, these green ones, will get a point for each one. That's another 2 points. And we get to log them, which is going to be very relevant for endgame scoring. Unfortunately, we'll lose this purple. But a big part of what you're doing, so the first thing that people have to be mindful of is you can only actually log the cards themselves if they match the color of the dice. Any other cards won't be logged, they'll be lost, even though you can get their cubes down. But the second thing that's worth mentioning is the fact that, what am I forgetting here? Is the fact that, oh yes, you need to have matching traits as you go. You need to have matching traits on these cards, meaning if I had these 2 over here, this green over here and this ocean, I couldn't log that. You have to choose a parent animal, and you can only log traits that match the parent animal. Okay, so anything else would be lost. I could log this card, but I'll get the card and not the cube because it doesn't match the parent animal. Okay, so you have to have traits that match the parent animal. That's the other thing to be mindful of. If you got it, great. If not, there'll be a rule book. This is not really how to play. This is a review. I'm just getting way too bogged down in it because I actually like this game quite a bit. But anyways, so you go ahead, you log those cards. You have these cards in your collection. That's great. Those are the core actions of the game. That's the core cycle. Rinse and repeat for 6 rounds, and that's the game. You're also going to get a red seal every single time you go there. These are very useful because they can both be cashed in for 5 money. They can also be used for extra turns at the end of each round, as well as for changing the color of a die and adding 5 to it. So very helpful to collect those. Once again, quick recap. The action spots are getting tokens, getting money and or first player, getting expert cards, getting animal cards, researching what's on the animal cards, logging your discoveries down here. Why are you doing all of that? Well, some of the things you've already seen give you points. You get points for researching discoveries, you get points for logging those discoveries, you get points for different things in the game as you play. But additionally, you get points in the game for your remaining money, you get points for your remaining discovery tokens, you get 4 points for each of these if you have them left, and then you also, and most importantly, you get points for having sets of things. Sets of cubes of the same color in a spot, as well as sets of cards of the same color, combining animals and experts. Basically, you have this track over here, where as you go down this track, you can basically see that you can get escalating numbers to the point that if you have 12 of a color, you're getting 40 bonus points. This is a game that will go to roughly 200 plus points. Getting 12 of a color can be a fifth of your score if you focus heavily on a color. So for example, looking at this spot over here, blue currently has a total of 6 cubes in meat. So, over there, not meat, in omnivore. No. Herbivore, omnivore. Why am I blanking? I'm blanking on what meat. Carnivore. Jeez, unbelievable. So anyway, so they have 6 cubes in carnivore. 6 cubes will translate to 8 points. Had they tried a little bit harder and gotten that to, let's say 10 cubes, that would be 28 points. So those first 6 only getting you 8, those additional 4 are getting you another 20 points. You want to focus heavily on things, whether they're animal traits or whether they're colors of cards, but you absolutely can get sets of 12. I've seen it happen, I've done it, so it can be a big deal to have that. But the flip side is you don't necessarily need just a single set of 12. Very often you have multiple larger sets that are getting you between 15 to 25 points in a few large sets, and then a few scattering points from other sets as well. But that's basically the game. Take a bunch of actions, constantly be moving up your reputation track, constantly getting escalating bonuses, build your tableaus from your experts, change up your tableau as you play because you could be mindful. The nice part about the experts is even when you're replacing a card, you don't lose the card because you can still be counting it towards a color set. So the idea of, oh no, I've gotten 4 cards already, that's a meaningless concept because you can keep taking more cards, those escalating bonuses. You get to the end of that track over there and you're getting 5 points per card, meaning taking an expert is a huge part of everything, which means we're way too far into this video. But let's go ahead and cover what I like, don't like, all that stuff, the general review part of things. Now, once again, prototype, everything you see here, subject to change, all that stuff, components, rules, anything there. As far as ease of play, First of all, as far as ease of play, it's a little harder for me to say than usual because this isn't the game that I learned the rulebook myself. I was taught this directly by them over TTS, directly by by Holy Grail Games, so I can't comment on how well the rulebook is. Even if I had issues, it's a prototype, so it's hard to really cover much there. I will say I've taught this game to multiple people though, and it's an easy teach for the most part. The general idea of dice placement, placing your dice down, very easy to go through. The most complicated part I find is that logging of discoveries. It'll still take you 10 minutes plus to get through the teach, but a fairly simple and procedural teach as far as I'm concerned. Not a lot that is that different past the logging your discoveries. For the most part, a bunch of things that you're probably familiar with, just the way they work together in this game. As far as table space, it is a decently large board, maybe a bit larger than it needs to be, but not overly so, but it's a decently large board, so factor that in. Not huge, but large. And as far as game time, this is a game that does run, I find, 90 minutes plus, an hour and a half plus. Even at 2 players, I find it kind of hits maybe a drop below 90 minutes, and then at larger player counts, it'll run closer to 2 hours. So factor that in. I find it is a good amount of game for the game time, but factor that into whatever you're looking for there. As far as player count, this is a 1 to 4 player game, and I've actually played this at every single one of those player counts. I usually play solo games solo and multiplayer games multiplayer, but I've enjoyed this one enough that I have chosen to dive into the solo mode that they have in the box. They have 9 levels of difficulty for the solo mode. I have not played them all. I've only gone up the easy ranks, but the easy ranks are great. They present plenty of challenge, even just the easy ranks. And one of the nice things I'll say is that the solo mode is a very different mind game than playing against actual human opponents, which is a nice little factor because it means you're not inherently getting better than other players when you play it solo. It's a different game to a degree because of the way you can control for the solo player. Longer story, I'm not going to do a deep dive into the solo, but what I will say is I have enjoyed the solo mode on this one. As far as higher player counts, interaction is huge in the game in general. I find that 3 is probably my sweet spot. 2 is definitely the fastest play, and I enjoy it plenty at 2 players. But you have a little less interaction, a little less competition for different cards, a little less availability on the dice colors to come into play. 3 gives you a good balance of different things, and 4 gives you the most dice, the most interaction, but also a little longer player time. So I think 3 is a sweet spot for me, but I've enjoyed it at all player counts. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, my biggest thing with this game, and the reason why I like Encyclopedia so much, is everything gives you something. This is a game that just feels rewarding at every turn, from the moment you turn over the round bonus to give you something extra. And it's worth noting, Prototype gives me 2 tokens that you can shuffle in that are blank, so 2 rounds you might get nothing. I take those out because I don't like it when I get nothing. And we all get something, so it's balanced, it's just an issue of what you want. So I've chosen to, and randomly, it could be that randomly they didn't show up because there's more tokens than there are rounds, but I take those out. I always play with the ones that give you stuff because they're more fun. But starting from the moment you flip over the round token to the moment you start taking an action and you're like, I want a card. Wait, you don't just get a card, you also get dice. And also you have the various bonus over here. You have an expert card that gives you an additional 3 money whenever you take a card. So you just have these constantly escalating bonuses left, right, and center. Whatever you do is feeding into something else. You want to get an expert card? Well, you can get an extra token as well at the same time. You want to log your discoveries? Great, here's a seal. That's a free action. Enjoy that. Everything is giving you something in this game, so it just feels rewarding at every single turn. And the experts give you tons of tableau building and just gives you options to develop your own tableau. What are you better at? You want to sit there and grab 3 cards that reward you for when you go to the money spot? Great, do that. Then just keep on building up a money game, and then you can lock in a money game, taking extra stars, extra reputation, extra whatever every time you go there, and then turn around and cash it in for a huge 40-point action where you just log everything you need. The game gives you plenty of ways to optimize and build around your desired strategy with those experts, and then, even though normally I'd complain, well, I want more than 4 experts, because of the fact that the colors of the experts feed into your final scoring, I have no qualms about grabbing another expert. And then sometimes you have things like this that are like, hey, take a point for every single expert you grabbed, or every time you grab an expert, take 2 reputation. So you build up your own little engines in different ways. I don't mind replacing cards. They contribute to my endgame scoring. It's just a lot of fun. And the dice sharing, I talked about this earlier, but the dice sharing is a nice touch. It's a mechanism I like in Trois as well. The idea that, yes, rolling dice, rolling good numbers can be beneficial, but it doesn't matter that much because I can always buy your dice from you. So I like that factor in the game where you're not really buying it in the typical sense, but you do get a perk. I can just take your die, but I have to do so mindful of the fact that I'm about to give you 3 points. So, and I'm saying that as someone who, my very first game of this was a 216-point tied game. So those 3 points can absolutely matter as you play. But I like that dice sharing, just the general dice availability, because you want certain colors of dice, and you may not otherwise get them on just your 4. But between the tokens that let you change the color of the dice, to taking out those dice, there's always something. The game is not designed to constrict you. The game is designed to let you do a lot of things, and it's how you do a lot of things that give you that game. And I like the game length as well. The general game length, 6 rounds. If it were 5 rounds, it would feel a bit too short for me. If it were 7 rounds, it would feel a bit too long. 6 gives you just enough space to get a lot done, to feel, and you'll start off feeling like you might be a little constricted, but as you build up your engine, as you get things going, you'll find that 6 rounds, at least for myself, is a great number as far as how long this game is. The general graphic design is solid. I like the overall board. We'll talk more about it in things you might not like, but general graphic design I enjoy. And then I like the fact that I talked about this already as well. I like the fact that solo is a different puzzle. I like the fact that when I'm playing it solo, it is very, very different. Core gameplay mechanisms, absolutely present, but the mindfulness of what I'm trying to do and how I'm trying to do it is very different than playing against another player. It means that I can play this game solo with less concern for the fact that I'm getting better than the other people who aren't playing it solo. It's very different because you have to be mindful. The AI has specific ways, and there's different AIs, different autonomas, depending on how you combine the cards, both their processes and their endgame scoring. But I like the fact that it gives you a different challenge. It's like, I know that you're going to take a 4, so I have to not take that 4. I have to deprive you of the 4, even though it's not the best die for me. At least it lends itself to a very different puzzle than playing it normally otherwise. As far as what I don't like, and there's a lot more that I like. I mean, really just this whole entire beast of a game, it just really, really works well. It just gives you fun things to do. I like games that let me do a lot of stuff, and this game, the reputation track, the reputation track is just constantly moving up, giving you extra bonuses. I love it. I love the fact that everything in this game is giving you extra stuff, giving you tons of ways to do more things as you play. As far as things I don't like, I'm sorry about my enthusiasm on this one. As far as things I don't like, both of them come down to luck aspects. First of all is that lower player counts, 8 dice from the bag can still leave colors of dice not present. And it happens plenty of times. It means that you are turning to your expedition tokens to change the color of the dice, which is not a bad thing in and of its own right, but it can be a little frustrating when player A is getting all the dice that works for their color and player B isn't. Larger player counts is not an issue because, again, you can take dice from other players and more dice are in play. At lower player counts, it can happen a little bit. And then secondly, and I'd say more importantly, the way the cards come out as well is something that I find you can't always get the cards that you want, especially as you move towards the end of the game where you're trying to feed into your certain strategy. The way you need the colors of the cards to match up, as well as the various types on those cards to match up, means sometimes you start playing, you try to build, and you're hoping, okay, I need some blue cards. I need some blue cards that have waves on them. I need that in my engine. And they don't come out that last round, or even the round before the last round. And there's no way to mitigate around that. One thing I'd love to see added is that these experts, they have no way to mitigate the card draw here. I'd love to see experts that have abilities in them that relate to the card draw. Like, oh, when you grab a card here, you can actually search for the first 5 cards and pick one of those instead. I'd love to see something that gave a way to mitigate around that, because this is the one area where I really find the luck of what happens towards the end of the game can really help one player and hurt another if they don't come out. As far as what I can see others not liking, only 2 small things there. One is very relevant and worth paying attention to. This game can devolve into a math puzzle at times. Sometimes choosing what to do is a simple question of what's going to score you more points. Do I hold on to that 23 money because I have a money scoring multiplier and it's going to be worth 22 points to me at the end of the game? Or is it better spent on another trait that if I go ahead and do that, it'll give me 6 points over there, it'll give me 8 points over here, plus it'll give me 1 more over here, pushing me over the edge, and that's going to be 23 points there. Sometimes it devolves into that aspect of just saying one of these 2 things is better than the other. When it involves an action as well, then it's a little harder to math out because you have to figure out the value of an action, which is not always as easy. But sometimes it's just a math game, and people who do the math in their head might get a bit of an edge over the people who don't want to do that math. So that's worth noting. You don't have to do the math ever. You can always play by your gut, but you might find yourself at a disadvantage if you're not willing to do a little bit of it as you play. And secondly is, and much more minorly, is inconsistencies around the worker placement. This is something that has been a bit of a struggle with people I've played with, where it's just not really clear what's a spot. The spots over here are here, 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 and here. Those are the spots. But you'll notice there's not a lot of common denominators over what defines a spot. Is it this little tag? Does that define a spot? Because we have that here, here, and here. But we don't have it here, here, or here. So what's a spot in the game? It doesn't take a lot to figure out, but it has been something that's been a bit of a struggle for people the first few times they go through it. So a small little nitpick. I love the graphic design element. I'm not asking for a change, but it can result in a small problem there. As far as final thoughts on Encyclopedia, it should be very, very clear from this entire video that I really like this game. It really surprised me. The first play was a ton of fun. The first play was literally me playing the game with a 45-minute window just so I could get a feel for how the game plays. And then I pushed off all the other things I had so I can actually finish the game because I was having too much fun playing it. It was not meant to be a full game, but I made it a full game because I liked it. And every single play from there has gotten consistently better. One of my concerns about the game is that it might get a little old as it comes down to the same idea, but the expert cards really mix things up. Plus, there are a ton of pathways to strategies as far as what you do, as far as how to diversify yourself, and all those lend themselves to just tons of different ways to dive into it. I'm multiple plays deep in this, and I am not getting remotely bored yet. I am having a ton of fun. I've been diving into it solo. I've been trying different things. I absolutely do want expansions already because I'm that kind of crazy, but this is just such a rewarding experience. It lets you do things in multiple ways. It feels like you're constantly pulling off more than you should be able to, but everyone else is at the table doing the same thing as well. When I say this is the game I wanted Wingspan to be, I just mean that I have these creatures, I have these cards, I have these species, and I'm more invested in the outcome here. I'm more invested in the nature aspect of the way things tie in, of the way these cards work together. It's not a thing against Wingspan. I mean, it is a little bit, but not meant to be. I like Wingspan, but this is a game that shines for me. It is so ridiculously enjoyable and engaging as you play through it. This is a 5 out of 5 for me. I wasn't sure if I'd end up there, but I'm having a hard time not doing so. A game that I voluntarily choose to dive into solo because of how much fun I'm having in a genre I typically don't play solo. Typically I play multiplayer games, multiplayer. It's rare for me that I dive into them solo, and some of the rare exceptions for me are games like Terraforming Mars, which is my #1 game of all time. Now this is not my #1 game of all time or that close, but as a 5 out of 5, it's definitely in the general range. Really enjoying Encyclopedia from Holy Grail Games, and you can, like I said, link down below, check it out on Kickstarter, GameFound, wherever it is. As far as recommendations for other game experiences, to begin with, Castles of Burgundy. Castles of Burgundy by Stefan Feld is also very much going to give you that daisy chaining aspect of everything, lets you do tons of things, and to a certain extent this has a Feldian feel. Not from the game design itself, it actually feels different, but from the sense that everything is giving you stuff and it's how you build around that becomes the optimal puzzle. And then similarly, Coimbra. Coimbra has a similar aspect of both the dice placement aspect as well as trying to daisy chain everything together and having different tracks, different benefits, different tableau building from experts and cards reward you in different ways. It has that as well. So if you like Coimbra or Castles of Burgundy, this is for sure worth paying attention to. And if you find yourself liking this, well, those are worth paying attention to as well. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. This is a longer video than I usually have for these, but that's just because I really like this one that much. In any case, and as always, have a good one.